Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Welcome to another episode of the Geek Homeworld. I am Ed, aka SavageTechman, and joining me for the first time in a very long time.
Da 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 da. Oops, wrong franchise.
Wrong franchise.
Hopefully, you don't have to pay a royalty.
Wrong universe too. Palace Princess Cheryl has returned. Yay!
Yay! I'm so excited to get out of my dungeon and back into the recording studio.
Yay!
AKA my dining room.
Well, it's the dining room table, but it'll suffice for now until we get a big sponsor here, and then we have big studio.
I thought I was the big sponsor, but okay.
All right, well, I'm working on that. So we're going to be talking about a movie. It's a small art house movie that no one's ever seen before. It's called Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah.
And this is going to be filled with spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. We got spoilers up
In the
here.
words of River Song, spoilers.
Spoilers. It's the doctor.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any way to not spoil this film. I mean, even the actors themselves are spoiling them on social media now, wishing each other happy birthday and future resurrections. So I think we can talk about this film freely. But feel free to go see the film right this very moment. I don't know why you haven't already. And then come back and listen to the podcast. In fact, pop it on in the car, on the train, however it is you get back home. You can listen to this podcast immediately after leaving the theater.
Immediately. You should. And you should tell somebody else about Geek Homeworld. And we are talking about this movie, and I've only seen it 5 times, I'm ashamed to say.
Yes, you're holding up the franchise entirely.
I know. Even though it looks like this weekend it's already crossing, when we're recording this, $1 billion international, when you put it all together worldwide, including domestic, which it's probably going to approach.
But it's not full release yet internationally yet.
It hasn't hit China, so it's
boom.
It's ahead of in 11 days versus 12 days. The Force Awakens took 12 days to get to $1 billion. It's taken internationally. It's taken one less day, still record setting, for Infinity War to burst that $1 billion thing. So I think you could call it a success.
Well, and there's been a lot out there in social media as well, showing, like Darth Vader with Thanos and all kinds of fun things out there. In fact, one where Darth Vader is handing the lightsaber over to Thanos.
And
I think Kathleen Kennedy or somebody put that out there.
Well, there was one of those where it had just a hand, and maybe it was Rey from Force Awakens, I'm not sure, handing the lightsaber over, and then you see like Iron Man's glove there.
Seen that one, no.
Yeah, and it says, congratulations on the biggest opening weekend. But what me and some of my friends were joking about is what you don't see behind the picture is that Mickey's got his hand in each glove. So
yeah, because he's handing the definitely lightsaber. Making off with all of this for sure.
And Marvel.
Yeah,
but definitely Disney.
I love Disney. I love Marvel, so I'm all okay with all of it.
It's all in-house. So
I think my favorite meme, though, has been one that shows Thanos facing off against Darth Vader and bragging to each other. And Thanos says, I have the gauntlet. And Darth Vader cuts his hand off in true Star Wars fashion.
Oh, that's cool.
So much for your gauntlet.
So much for your gauntlet. So we're full of spoilers on this episode, and this is a culmination of 10 years of Marvel, which, if you check some of our past episodes, I did a very extensive episode, including our first video podcast over on YouTube for Geek Homeworld, my first attempt at that, and covered the entire 18 movies. This is the 19th movie in the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this movie lived up to all the hype. I tried not to get hyped up too much, and this movie got better the more I saw it. The first time was total shock.
I think everyone's in shock the first time they see that. And I have to say, over the course of those 10 years, they've hardly put a step wrong. I mean, there are some clunkers in there. Iron Man 3 is definitely never going to make my list of great films, for instance. But for the most part, they have been so reliably good. I mean, when you look at
And
something
cohesive.
like Black Panther, like Winter
Which was
Soldier, you know, like
Yes,
the
very
first
good.
Avengers, and then to add in this one in Infinity War, well, when we saw Captain America Civil War, and the way they were able to incorporate so many characters. Now you add on Guardians of the Galaxy, you add on all these other characters. It's amazing to me.
Kevin Feige talked about that. He said that was their test for Infinity War. Civil War was to see how many characters they could get on screen at once fighting. Minus, of course, Ant-Man and Hawkeye, who sit this one out.
Right. But I'm less interested in the fighting than I am in the character development and the story. There's a lot of fighting in this film for sure. But the story is unbelievable. When you look at the DC universe, they can't even handle 3 characters at once. So, you know.
Well, that's another story for episodes we've done before, and we'll probably do again. But
so I was really excited about it. Although I have to say, the opening sequence with the attack on the
Asgardian ship. Because it picks up right after Thor Ragnarok.
Exactly, like it's in the same timeline entirely.
And then the Guardians show up, and they do bring a great bit of levity to.
Well, they don't show up then; they show up quite a bit later.
Well,
I mean, that first sequence where we lose Loki. I mean, that's my favorite.
You were
character
you were
in the
about
universe.
Getting up and leaving the theater.
I was like, "That's it, I'm done. I could just go now."
From the beginning, I get you've been since Thor.
Yeah, I love Loki.
Yeah, and I like Loki. I mean, Tom Hiddleston, his is an example of a character that probably wasn't going to make it through all of this.
No, I don't think there's any
intention. But he's done such a good job. He's just such a. You put your trust in him. You know he's going to let you down. And like Thor said, you really are a bad
You're
brother.
a bad brother. Yeah. So I mean, and I think he's definitely gone for good. Now, having said that, a lot of people kept asking me, how many people died? I heard 1 died. I heard 2 died. I heard 3 died. Tell me who. And I'm like, you really don't want me to tell you. And then someone was like, is it a man or a woman? I said, well, you didn't even ask if it was a human. We're like, oh, not Groot.
I am Groot.
I'm like, well, Groot's not the only
non-human.
I
want to introduce you to my friend. Tree. I am Tree.
No, that's not even the best part.
Rogers.
The best part is Thor calling Rocket Rabbit the whole time.
Better than the Trash Panda.
I love all of Thor's scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
I love his interaction with Star-Lord. I love his interactions with Groot and with Rocket for sure. Just, to be able to bring that fun in that the Thor movies have had and that certainly the Guardians movies have had.
Right. Well, it was always interesting to see how it would end up when you had Star-Lord and Iron Man trying to be the leaders of the whole thing. And Star-Lord kind of lost his cool right there like anybody would. And, when Gamora, when he finds out, they've almost got the gauntlet off of Thanos, his hand. And
there's all this human passion, if you will, and emotion
which
throughout this film about friendship and love and who do we save and who do we sacrifice. And, everyone's willing to sacrifice themselves, but no one's willing to allow them to. And when you think about what's at stake, half of the universe is about to die. I'm pretty sure, just go ahead and kill him, Wanda. Let's stop ticking around with trying to get the stone out of his head.
You should have went for the head, right?
Yeah. But, okay. I have to say, and this is going to appeal to the older members of your audience. Maybe some of the young folks won't get this, but
what's that?
I'm pretty sure that Captain Marvel is going to open with Bobby Ewing in the shower. We're basically just going to get a reset somehow. We're going to get a reset.
Thanos has the time stone, And
we know there's another Guardians movie, so they can't all be dead.
And there's going to be another Spider-Man, of course. And I knew, of course, when Black Panther died. I'm like, there's no way
they just killed Black Panther. He just made a bajillion dollars. You just don't kill Black Panther,
so that's not going to happen. And there are so many great performances, all the actors and actresses, and just everybody that did their part and behind the scenes. I mean, this movie was very solid. I mean, coming off of Black Panther, which was a phenomenal movie, one of the best Marvel movies to date. Some arguably say it's the best. It definitely was a revolutionary movie. It's like Guardians brought in the humor to the universe, and they're going to be getting into horror in the future.
I don't even.
I don't know how Marvel does that.
I'm definitely not interested in that. I'm just going to
Loki's
stick with
gone,
these
so you might not
guys.
be interested anymore.
No, I will be.
Or unless
You
it
know,
comes
and I
back,
think Black Panther brought in. I think there's always been a kind of social consciousness, but Black Panther definitely brought that to the forefront.
To show characters of color that were just
And women too. I
Yes,
mean, Black
yes.
Widow has been incredibly important to this
she's
universe.
finally supposed to get that solo movie we've been promised for years.
We'll see.
And
But
she
to have
totally kicks
all the
butt.
characters that there are in Black Panther, really incredible. And as you say, for Infinity War, so many fantastic performances. It's really kind of hard to pick out who's the best. You know, like I said, I really enjoyed all of Thor's scenes, but I have to say, for me, best performance out of all is Josh Brolin as Thanos.
He makes, and this is what I love, they made Thanos, they make
He's sympathetic. He's an anti-hero.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
He's not
they
just
make you
a
feel
villain.
for him, you know,
Yeah.
and he has tremendous loss, and even though his way of going about balancing the universe is sadistic and terrible and horrible, you still understand why he's brought to that point where he feels that that's really the only thing that's necessary. He tells that to Gamora. He said, I brought, to basically borrow from Star Wars here, I brought balance to to the universe, you know.
But he had to sacrifice so much, and that's what I think is going to be the real reset. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of the older, you know, more original Avengers left at the end of the film. It's really the more newly introduced characters who are gone. And so we're going to have sort of the old guard resurrecting the young guard, I think, in whatever's going to happen next.
Right.
But I think Thanos is going to be a part of that. I think he really regrets the choice that he made.
Yeah, I mean, he gained all the world to lose everything, you know, and as so to speak.
Well, and we know from Doctor Strange, who has seen, you know, all these millions of possible
14,605,000.
You've seen the film more than me, so you can probably remember the number, but I've only seen it
And
twice.
there's only one. This is the only. And he told
This is the
Tony,
only way for them to win.
right?
This
to
was the
lose,
only option.
to let
They had
Thanos get exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
To wipe out half of the universe.
I
then
mean,
you can reset the clock.
And so we know Doctor Strange is coming
This-
back, so this isn't going to be the end. But I have to say, watching it the second time in an audience full of other people who were seeing it for the first time
was fun.
was kind of fun because, I mean, there was one guy down the
gasps.
aisle who just every time something happened, he would exclaim expletives, and so I just started paying attention to him. Like I knew what was coming next all the time, and so. But when it got to the part where we start having, there's always two characters on the screen, and one of them disintegrates.
Oh, there were grown men in
They
there
were just-
shedding man
I mean,
tears.
you hear sniffles, you hear cries, and
Especially
and
Spider-Man.
the expletive man.
Yeah.
He just sat there with his mouth open, staring at the screen, like he was in complete shock and horror. Nobody leaves. This is like the first Marvel film that nobody leaves cheering
and pumped.
You know, although they do enjoy the post-credit
The
scene.
sound design in this is wonderful because the music fits just perfectly, and it's almost like it feels like an end, how it's supposed to be. And I know that we're going to get a reset, and that we're going to get at least one more movie with Captain America in it. You know, he's going to be, and then we'll get Hawkeye. He'll come back, and I think it'll be the last hurrah, and it'll be the official changing of the guard. Everybody's coming back. I mean, they took out basically all of the Guardians except Rocket. I mean, because they took out Star-Lord, so you know Star-Lord's coming back. So nothing's forever, and in the comics they're famous for resetting, and there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, but we're definitely gonna. I mean, even though this feels like an end, it's not the end. And
no, there's no way.
And one of the most interesting things is you barely see the Hulk in this, and this is part of that art.
Well, and I think we have to remember
Ragnarok.
too, you know, and it becomes clear in the film, but it may be easy to forget, especially if you've not seen all of the films, that Hulk's been gone since they were in Russia.
Right.
So he has no idea about Civil
Sokovia.
War. You know, we get him back in Thor Ragnarok where he
since
goes
Age of
to
Ultron,
goes to the planet of
that place.
Oh, that dude who's in the Jurassic
Jeff
Park movies
Goldblum.
too. Yeah, the Goldblum planet, I like to call it.
I forget.
And so he has no idea that there's been this whole breakup of the Avengers. What, you mean like a
Right.
band?
Yeah.
You know.
Like the Beatles.
And so, and Banner is always kind of a little bit out of the loop anyway, but in this one, he's really out of the loop. And we don't get to see any kind of resolution to his relationship with Black Widow.
Yeah,
There's
which
just that
I wanted,
awkward moment.
I wanted more of that, and
So we're going to see that in whatever he's in next. We're going to have progress in their relationship or some sort of resolution.
I'm trying to read between the lines there, and I feel like during that time, because Nat's hair's blonde now, and if you look at Steve Rogers, he's got a little bit of blonder highlights in his hair.
Yeah, his hair is very dark.
It's dark. It is dark. He's got the beard and everything. Oh, you copied my beard.
Yeah.
As Laura said. But I wonder if something's been going on with them, if they've gotten closer.
No.
Well, there were hints of that in the past, and then,
Well, there's hints of her with everybody in the past.
Yeah.
I do have to say, I'm pretty sure that she didn't scissor choke anybody in this movie, which has been a classic Black Widow move.
Yeah, I mean, she can do it
But,
like nobody else.
Scarlett Johansson herself has been pushing back a lot against the sexist questions and
Yeah.
commentaries. And so it may have been she herself who said, look, I'm not going to scissor kill anybody around their necks anymore. I'm not putting my crotch in their faces anymore.
Well, that's a valid point, I guess.
Because the other guys get asked all kinds of questions, and she gets asked about her costume, and she's like, literally, I'm wearing the same costume as last time. I got a new vest,
Yeah.
lay off already.
That's true. That's a very good point there. But this movie, I mean, I think it does feel a little bit long at times, but everything feels necessary. And if you think about taking 10 years of continuity in all these movies and bringing it all together, I think they did just a wonderful
It's really
job.
kind of
Russo brothers.
amazing. It is. Well, and I have to say, probably the best scene in the movie is the death of Spider-Man.
And I'm
Tom
hearing
Holland.
that Tom Holland, he ad-libbed pretty much that scene there, a good part of
amazing.
it. So that was good to see that emotion. And everybody, Tony's never been a father to anybody, and he's
Right.
talking about that in the film, which I find that a little bit odd that him and Pepper, all of a sudden, they don't give you any background. They broke up before him and Gwyneth, and then now they're back together.
Well, no,
so
we kind of got that in Spider-Man because he was going to reveal the Iron Spider suit.
Right.
Then at the end, and then he still had to go
and
in.
Peter said, "No, I'm not ready for it."
Right.
And
But then he had to go into the press conference. And so I think they ended up announcing that they were getting married. I think that's what they did in that press conference.
maybe.
So I don't think there's a big gap there.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't bother me as much per se, but it's good to see them. But like that. But yeah, the Spider-Man scene was like him losing his son. He's like, "I'm sorry, Mr. Stark. I'm sorry I let you down." And he's like, after he's already dubbed him an official Avenger. So,
Well, and another great moment for Walking Dead fans is Peter Dinklage, the surprise role.
yes.
I mean, of course, we already had Denai Guerrero. She came in with Black Panther. She's in this film as well.
Fantastic.
She's really terrific. But Peter Dinklage as the giant dwarf.
which I thought was great. I was like, yeah.
I didn't really understand why he had to speak in his fake British accent, but whatever.
It was very Game of Thrones ish for
Big
me.
scale Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and it just
Oh,
the
that's
stature
right.
of
He's
that
not
character.
Walking Dead. Oh my gosh! Somebody
he's
shoot me in the
Game of
head.
Thrones, yeah.
You didn't even catch me on that.
I'm sorry.
I'm taking away your geek card.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna let you roll with that. There's just so much I'm
Lo siento.
overwhelmed by this
Lo
film.
siento, yeah.
And
Sorry.
but yeah, Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones.
Love him so much.
He's awesome.
Sorry, Game of
Brilliant
Thrones hasn't been
actors.
on in a while, so I'm having trouble remembering that show.
I know.
And it's been delayed again, so yeah.
Dear. I don't even
Maybe
wanna
one
talk
day,
about it.
one day. But just brilliant to make him a giant.
But to make him, I thought that was great casting.
Because he is a giant.
He is a giant, and his stature as an actor is as of such. What did Doctor Strange? I love Doctor Strange in there. Benedict Cumberbatch is awesome. We saw him.
Well, he's
again.
definitely better in this than he is in Ragnarok. I thought that was pretty throwaway in Ragnarok. But I love the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch has as his sidekick Benedict Wong.
He's awesome.
The only two Benedicts acting in the world. They're
Yeah,
working
there's
together.
Well, there's a whole meme about that and the Chris's and all the
Lots
that are
of
in
Chris's.
in this whole universe and all that. But
I was expecting that we were going to get a little bit of oh shoot, what was that silly animated character? Oh, Howard the Duck.
I'm glad we didn't.
I was
because
afraid
that
we were going to
would've
see Howard the Duck when they
take
went
away-
to nowhere.
Yeah. And I was thinking of the Howard the Duck thing, and I was like, please don't do that. Let's keep it a little bit more serious. And I like the tone. I mean, Chris Hemsworth did say he wished Thor had more humor, but I think Thor had a lot of humor in this movie. He didn't have as much as Ragnarok. Ragnarok was almost a comedy.
Well, I thought Ragnarok was two separate films: the planet of the Jeff Goldblum, and then the whole story of death back on Asgard. It felt more like a Guardians movie to me.
Now, I've got to call myself out for something I didn't notice the first time watching.
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you say that.
I was like, man, I can't believe Red Skull. And you're like, what? Like, you didn't recognize Red Skull.
I didn't. I knew he looked familiar.
I don't even like the first Avenger, and I remembered Red Skull, so.
Well, I was just so... I think he did great, but the fact that wasn't Hugo Weaving disturbed me. But the actor did a spot-on impression or job of being Red Skull in that, and I was extremely happy with that. So,
well, and I like Bucky as well, so it was good to see Bucky joining the fight.
Yeah, and it's
of course he didn't have to fight next to Iron Man, so
right.
we didn't see any resolution of that relationship.
There's still some things, since the band broke up.
Right. Well, and it's Banner. I mean,
yeah,
Iron Man refuses to call Captain America in, just refuses, and so it's Banner who finds the phone and calls him. So there's no resolution to Civil War yet either.
Right, and that's probably part of the plan to split the Avengers up, to break them apart from the inside Civil War. I mean, I'm glad they did this the way they did the movies, so that bringing them back together, it would, they'd have to come back together. That's what the Avengers movies are for, when the team has to come back together. And, we have the 6 Infinity Stones, and we finally found out where the Soul Stone was, and that was with Red Skull, who's destined to watch over it. And that's when Thanos had to, in that point where he's got tears coming down, and I knew it was
somebody
coming.
he loves, of course. It was
Gamora.
And Gamora had, she's like, no, you love no one, so you're defeated. And then, of course, it she does. But I think she comes back. I mean, obviously she's going to come back. And I think that's
where he
Guardians.
resets it. I think Thanos,
maybe it resets in Guardians.
I don't know.
I don't know when it's going to reset. It's not going to reset in Ant-Man.
Well, they're going to, honestly, to have a Guardians movie, they're going to really only have Rocket and...
Well, it's because everybody...
Yeah,
either everybody comes back in that film or in something before that. I'm not sure.
Guardians is going to come after that. Guardians 3.
After Captain Marvel.
Well, yeah, after Captain Marvel, because you're going to have Captain Marvel right before the next Avengers next year. So then you'll have, after that, I think the following year, you'll have Guardians 3. So everything will be fixed enough so that they can continue sequels, and then you'll have Spider-Man.
Or we'll just get Bobby Ewing in the shower.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, but I think the only other character besides Loki who is definitely dead is Heimdall, Idris Elba.
Yeah.
I think he's I think everyone who dies before Gamora.
Yeah, you made that point. That's a very good point.
Because I think if Thanos is going to be the one who does the reset with the time stone, he's going to go back to the death of Gamora, because that's who he sacrificed, and that's what he regrets, is sacrificing Gamora. Unless he goes all the way back to her childhood and saves her family, which I doubt. I mean, that's too far.
If he does that goes way back before everything, and so
yeah, it'll just be like starting Star Trek over again.
Oh dear. But yeah, it just really depends how far back the writers really want to go with the story, and that's what's going to be interesting about it to figure out.
I don't think it'll really go back before this film. I think it will go back to the death of Gamora, and so that would mean that Idris Elba and Tom are both out.
Right, so we have the Space Stone that we saw in Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers. We got the Mind Stone that was in Avengers, Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, and Civil War.
And in Vision's head.
And in Vision's head. Well, Heimdall in Asgard, he had the Tesseract, which was the Space Stone.
Which we had in the very first Avenger movie.
Right. Well, yes, we did.
Not the first Avenger, but Avengers. The Avengers.
The Avengers. Marvel's The Avengers. the reality stone we saw in the Dark World, it was basically the ether, and we saw that in Nowhere in the Collector's Museum. Also, the Power Stone we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was the orb in Xandar and the Nova Corp's vault. It was there. So the Power Stone and the Nova Corp's, there's a hero called, and he's in different stages, and I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but there's a hero named Nova. So if they killed everybody in Xandar, I'm sure Nova survives. And so, I think he's going to play into coming in with Captain Marvel. I would not be surprised. We have the Time Stone. Obviously, we saw that in Doctor Strange, the Eye of Agamotto, and the Soul Stone we had with Red Skull watching over it. So those are your stones, and it was just amazing for me from the sound part where Thanos just snaps his finger. It was just so like a thunderclap, and where did Thanos go? Was that some sort of afterlife?
It's Norway, I think.
Norway? He went to Norway? Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Doesn't everybody want to go to Norway?
Yeah, why not? Let's go to Norway.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Or Scotland. They look kind of similar.
And that important moment where there's the young Gamora, and he says he calls her little one throughout the film, and she said, "Did you do it?" And he said, "Yes." And then little Gamora says, "Was it worth it?"
What did it cost?
What did it cost? Thank you. And Thanos says, almost in tears, he says, everything.
Everything.
And then he comes back and he's smiling over the universe, and a thankful universe, as he said. But it's interesting to see where it goes. And there are so many ways you can go with this story. I don't actually know what my thoughts are on where it goes. And like a lot of movies, the first time you see it, you're just kind of in amazement about everything, and then
there's so much.
There's so much to pick on. There's so many Easter eggs, and this movie didn't feel too packed. It did feel a little bit long, like they could have shortened some things.
Well, amazingly to me, because I'm usually the one saying one less battle scene, I don't really feel.
I think every battle scene kicked butt.
I didn't feel like it was too long. I mean, there are a lot of battle scenes.
I loved when Thor came in with Stormbreaker. Oh my gosh. And, he's like, bring me Thanos.
Which included Groot.
Yeah, which included Groot or Tree.
the adolescent with the bad language.
Yeah.
Thor speaks Groot. That was the only spoiler I put out to people. Thor speaks Groot.
Thor speaks Groot. It's an elective on Asgard. Asgard. So... what else would you like to say? Is there anything else about the film?
I mean, I'm just looking for... I don't know... I'm sure I'll enjoy Ant-Man and...
The Wasp.
The Wasp. Mm-hmm. But,
which was partly filmed here.
I'm not really
Savannah.
Looking forward to it terribly. I'm sure I'll enjoy it, but it's not like, woo, I can't wait like it was Black Panther.
Yeah, well, I think the hype's going to build up a little bit more for it. I like the trailer that's coming. Of course, next in the Marvel Universe, and you do not... trailer. I know you don't care about this at all, but Deadpool 2 is coming out in a couple weeks.
I do not care for that either.
There's a video, and I haven't shown you the video, but Richard, who's on the podcast sometimes here, he shared the video with me. Celine Dion is singing a song called Ashes. And Deadpool's dancing around the stage, and and he's like, okay, at the end he's like, Celine, you need to that was an 11. He's like, you need to bring it down to about a 5, 5.5. This isn't Titanic. And she's looking at him from the stage, she's pointing her throat. She said, this only does 11. But what sucks is that's such a great song. I could see that being like a Titanic hit, no pun intended. Ha ha ha. But it's hilarious video, Ashes. But anyway, we'll probably be talking about Deadpool 2 in a couple weeks.
Then I haven't looked.
We have Ant-Man and the Wasp. Then we have, that's all for 2018 in the MCU. Then we have...
because we already had Black Panther.
Then we have Captain Marvel coming out before like next March or April, I think, 2019. And then we get, next May, we get the next Avengers. So... And that Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, I think, close out phase 3. And so...
Oh, well, yeah. For people who are less familiar with the comics, it might be important to talk about the post-credit scene where we see Samuel L. Jackson, because not everyone understands what the signal he sends out is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you didn't get that, he had a thing, it looked like a pager.
Looked like an old-time pager.
An old-time pager or something, which is awesome. And I love that they cut it off. He's like, mother. And then he's like, fades away into dust. And he's calling Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's like the Nova Corps Captain Marvel kind of. It's the Captain Marvel emblem, so we get to see her, Of course, it's weird because I grew up on Captain Marvel being the old 70s TV show, which was this guy with a lightning bolt, and that's a different Captain Marvel, a different incarnation. Yeah, it was kind of a ripoff of Superman in a way, but he had similar powers.
They're all ripoffs of each other.
Yeah, but the Captain Marvel, Brie Larson's going to be awesome. No, it's not Shazam. Yeah, Shazam was kind of a ripoff of that, but The Rock is still attached to Shazam as not as Shazam, but as
good.
He wanted to play the villain. They offered him Shazam. He said no.
He should do the villain.
Black Adam is his name, and he's just as like badass as Shazam. So, but anyway, that's another story for another time. But
yeah, so I mean, Marvel's still locked and loaded, and Disney is fully invested, and I mean, we're going to be seeing these films for a long time to come. I don't need Deadpool, and I don't need the Marvel horror films that are coming. I've got enough with these Marvel.
Well, I liked
Avengers series
because there was the big beef out there and I can't knock James Cameron because he's a genius beyond geniuses. He's definitely one of the best ever, and he came out and threw slack at Kevin Feige and said, Marvel's all the same formulaic stuff and it's blah 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 and this and that, and he took it in good stride.
It takes him 5 years to make a movie,
but he makes good ones, and he's coming back with a Terminator trilogy, please, with the original. I'm so excited. I'm such a Terminator
that's
fan.
Take 20 years.
I know. Well, he better do it while they're still able to do it and pass that torch and get it done with. But that's another story for another time. So anyway, we got to wrap it up here. I'm starting to ramble. So thank y'all for listening to this episode, our spoiler-filled Infinity War episode. Yay. Thank you, Cheryl, for joining us again here on the podcast. We've missed having your voice and your intellect, and
I've missed me too.
I've missed you, even though I see you all the time. I always miss you. So anyway, I don't know, just go see Infinity War and hug those closest to you because they could be gone in ashes.
There's only
in a
two
second.
of you in the room. One of you is going to turn to ash any moment, so be careful.
And it depends what your contract says, whether you turn to ash.
How long you've been in the universe, I think.
Yeah, or what universe, yeah.
Oh, wait, you're older than me. This is not good. This is not good. Well.
And here's something that I pointed out, and I'll close with this, is the Infinity Gauntlet. I never realized this, and I mentioned this to some friends, but it's for a left-handed person. And I was joking. I said, it would do me no good for two reasons, because I am a lefty, and I would just have to snap my fingers to just make sure it worked, and I would accidentally,
Within a day, we'd be down to 12 people in the universe.
Yeah, 12 people in the universe. And I'm like,
every time you snapped, half of them went away.
I was like, wait a minute.
Wait, oh my gosh, your listening audience is almost gone.
They're going, wait a minute, come back. Time stone
the other way.
I was doing the Doctor Strange thing.
I'm going to chop your hands off.
I'm doing it right now. You can't see it. She's like, if you do that Doctor Strange
Hold on, there's a lot of lightsabers in this house. I'll be back.
Yeah, they're somewhere. All righty, well, thank y'all for listening. Check out Geek Homeworld. You know where to check us out. Check out our YouTube page. Be nice to us over there. Leave your comments, and thanks to our new followers and everybody. So goodbye to infinity.
And beyond.
And beyond. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.